Ryan Jones was not a bad man. At least that's what he told himself. At 32 years old, he lived a simple life in London. He worked at a cell phone store, shared a flat with two friends, and spent most weekends at the local pubs. Ryan liked to think he was funny. He was the kind of man who always tried to make others laugh. Sometimes his jokes worked. Many times, they did not. Friday nights were special for Ryan. After a long week of selling phones and fixing problems, he would meet his friends at the Golden Lion pub. This Friday was even more special. Ryan had just been made assistant manager at the store. It was his first real promotion in 5 years. "To Ryan," shouted his friend Mark, raising his glass high. "The new boss man." The group of 6 friends all raised their glasses. Ryan smiled wide. He felt important. "Thanks, mates," Ryan said, taking a big gulp of his beer. "Next round is on me." This made everyone cheer even louder. Ryan loved being the center of attention. He ordered another round, and then another. As the night went on, the music got louder, and Ryan's head got fuzzier. After his 6th beer, he was swaying on his feet. After his 8th, he could barely stand up straight. "Maybe slow down, mate," said his friend Dave, looking worried. "We've got all night." But Ryan didn't listen. He was celebrating. He deserved this night. By midnight, the Golden Lion was closing. The bartender rang the bell for last call. Ryan ordered one final beer and drank it quickly. When they finally stepped outside, the cool night air hit Ryan hard. The street seemed to move under his feet like a ship on rough seas. "Whoa," Ryan said, grabbing Dave's shoulder to keep from falling. "I think I had one too many." "You think?" laughed Mark. "You've had about 5 too many." The friends began walking down the quiet street. Most shops were closed, but a small cafe at the corner still had lights on. Outside the cafe, 2 large German Shepherd dogs were tied to a bike rack. They sat quietly, well-behaved and calm. Ryan spotted the dogs and nudged Mark. "Look at those 2, he said, his words slurring together. "Bet they're not so tough." "Leave them alone, Ryan," Dave warned. "They're just waiting for their owner." But Ryan was too drunk to listen. A bad idea was forming in his foggy mind. He thought it would be funny to pretend to kick the dogs, not to hurt them, just to scare them a little. Just a joke to make his friends laugh. "Watch this," Ryan said with a silly grin. He stumbled toward the dogs, who looked up at him with alert eyes. "Ryan, don't," called out his friend Tom. "That's not funny." But Ryan was already approaching the dogs. The German Shepherds watched him carefully, their ears perked up. They didn't growl or bark. They were too well trained for that. Ryan made a sudden kicking motion toward the first dog, stopping his foot just before touching it. The dog flinched and backed up, confused. Ryan laughed loudly. "See? Not so tough after all," he shouted, much too loud for the quiet street. His friends weren't laughing. They looked embarrassed and worried. "Seriously, stop it," Dave said, grabbing Ryan's arm. "You're being a jerk." Ryan shook him off. "It's just a joke. Watch." He moved to fake kick the second dog. This time, the cafe door swung open. A man stepped out. He was muscular with a shaved head and intense eyes. He wore a simple black t-shirt that showed strong arms covered in tattoos. His face was like stone as he watched Ryan pretend to kick his dogs. "What do you think you're doing to my dogs?" the man asked in a deep, gravelly voice. Ryan turned, still laughing, and froze. His smile disappeared. Even in his drunk state, he recognized the face immediately. It was Jason Statham, the famous action movie star. And he did not look happy. Ryan's stomach dropped. He had just pretended to kick Jason Statham's dogs. Ryan stood frozen in place. His drunk mind tried to make sense of what was happening. Jason Statham, the real Jason Statham, was standing right in front of him, and Ryan had just pretended to kick his dogs. "I asked you a question," Statham said, his voice low and dangerous. What are you doing to my dogs? Ryan's friends backed away slowly. No one wanted to be part of this trouble. Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came out. His heart was beating so fast, he thought it might burst from his chest. It was just a joke, Ryan finally managed to say. His words came out slurred and weak. I wasn't really going to kick them. Statham's eyes narrowed. He walked past Ryan and checked on his dogs. He patted them gently, making sure they were okay. The dogs seemed calm, but they stayed close to their owner. A joke. Statham turned back to Ryan. You think scaring animals is funny? Ryan shook his head, then stopped because it made the world spin. No, I didn't think. That's right, Statham cut him off. You didn't think. By now, a small crowd had gathered. People were taking out their phones, recording the scene. Someone whispered, "That's Jason Statham." Another person said, "That drunk guy was messing with his dogs." Ryan felt his face turn red with shame. This was not how his celebration night was supposed to end. He tried to stand up straight, to look less drunk than he was. "Look, I'm sorry," Ryan said. "I didn't know they were your dogs. So it would be okay if they belonged to someone else?" Statham asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were not. Ryan's friend, Dave, stepped forward. "He's had too much to drink. We'll take him home now." Statham looked at Dave, then back at Ryan. "Would you kick a child as a joke, or an old person?" "No, of course not," Ryan said, feeling sick. "Then why a dog?" Statham asked. "These animals trust us. They can't speak up for themselves." Ryan had no answer. He looked down at his shoes, unable to meet Statham's eyes. The action star untied his dog's leashes from the bike rack. The German Shepherd stood at attention beside him, perfectly trained. Ryan noticed how beautiful they were up close. Their shiny coats, alert eyes, and powerful bodies. They weren't just pets, they were magnificent animals. Everyone expected Statham to walk away then. Maybe throw in one last angry comment before leaving. But what he did next surprised them all. "Where do you live?" Statham asked Ryan. Ryan blinked in confusion. "What?" "Your address. Where do you live?" Statham repeated slowly, as if talking to a child. Ryan's friends looked worried. Dave stepped closer to Ryan. "Why do you need to know that?" Statham sighed. "Because this man needs to learn something. And he's too drunk right now to remember anything I say." Ryan, without thinking, gave his address. Flat 3B, Winchester Court, just off Barker Street. Statham nodded. "Be home tomorrow at noon. Sober. I'll be coming by." A chill ran down Ryan's spine. Was Jason Statham threatening him? Was he going to show up and beat him up when he was sober enough to remember it? "Why?" Ryan asked, his voice small. "Because you need to meet Max and Bella properly," Statham said, nodding at his dogs. "And you need to hear their story." Before Ryan could ask more questions, Statham turned and walked away, his dogs moving perfectly in step beside him. The small crowd parted to let them through, many people still filming with their phones. Ryan stood there, swaying slightly, watching the famous actor disappear around a corner. His celebration night was ruined. And now Jason Statham knew where he lived and was planning to visit him tomorrow. "You're in so much trouble," Mark whispered, saying what everyone was thinking. Ryan nodded. For the first time that night, he felt completely sober. The next morning, Ryan woke up with the worst headache of his life. His mouth felt like sandpaper, and his stomach turned at the smallest movement. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the shame that washed over him as memories from the night before came flooding back. "Oh no," he groaned, covering his face with his hands. Did that really happen? He reached for his phone on the bedside table. 23 new messages, 5 missed calls, and worst of all, a video link from Dave with the text, "You're famous now, mate." Not in a good way. With shaking hands, Ryan clicked the link. It was a TikTok video. Someone from last night had filmed the whole thing. Ryan pretending to kick the dogs, Statham confronting him, everything. The video already had over 100,000 views. The comments were not kind. What a jerk. Who kicks dogs as a joke? Jason should have knocked him out. Ryan threw his phone down and buried his face in his pillow. This couldn't be happening. Not only had he made a fool of himself in front of a famous actor, but now the whole internet was watching it too. Then a cold realization hit him. Statham had said he would come to Ryan's flat at noon. Ryan looked at the clock. 11:15 a.m. He won't really come, Ryan told himself as he stumbled out of bed. He was probably just trying to scare me. But what if he did come? Ryan couldn't face Jason Statham looking like this. Unwashed, hungover, in yesterday's clothes that smelled of beer and cigarettes. Ryan showered quickly, swallowed 2 pain pills, and made the strongest coffee he could. By 11:50, he was sitting nervously on his couch, jumping at every sound in the hallway outside his flat. At exactly noon, there was a knock at the door. Ryan's heart nearly stopped. He considered not answering, maybe pretending he wasn't home. But what good would that do? Statham knew he lived here. With a deep breath, Ryan opened the door. There stood Jason Statham, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and jeans, looking just as intimidating in daylight as he had the night before. But what surprised Ryan most were the 2 German shepherds sitting calmly at Statham's side. "You brought the dogs?" Ryan asked, his voice cracking. "Max and Bella," Statham said, nodding at each dog. "And yes, I brought them because they're part of this conversation. May we come in?" Ryan stepped back, making way for the actor and his dogs. He noticed the dogs stayed very close to Statham, watching his every move for commands. "Sit," Statham said, and both dogs sat immediately. Then he looked at Ryan. "You too." Ryan sat down quickly on his own couch. "Coffee?" Ryan offered weakly, not knowing what else to say. "No," Statham said, sitting in the armchair across from him. "This isn't a social visit." Ryan nodded, looking down at his hands. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of Max's gentle panting. "I'm really sorry about last night," Ryan finally said. "I was drunk, but that's no excuse. I would never actually hurt an animal." "But you thought scaring them was funny," Statham said. "It wasn't a question. I wasn't thinking at all," Ryan admitted. Statham looked at him for a long moment, then reached down to pat Bella's head. "These dogs have been through more than you can imagine," he said quietly. "And I don't just mean last night." Something in Statham's voice made Ryan look up. The actor's face had softened slightly, and there was genuine emotion in his eyes when he looked at his dogs. "What do you mean?" Ryan asked. Statham took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I was filming in Romania. There was a local animal shelter that was about to be shut down. They had over 50 dogs that would be put down if no one took them. I went to see if I could help with money or anything else." He paused, scratching behind Max's ears. The dog leaned into his touch, eyes closing in contentment. "That's where I found these 2, Statham continued. "They were in the worst shape of all the dogs there. And their story is something you need to hear." Ryan leaned forward, his hangover temporarily forgotten. Whatever he had expected from this visit, this wasn't it. Statham leaned back in the armchair, his eyes never leaving his dogs. Max and Bella were found chained outside a factory that had closed down. No food, barely any water. They had been there for at least 2 weeks. Ryan winced. He couldn't imagine leaving animals like that. "The person who owned them used them as guard dogs," Statham continued. "When the factory shut down, he just left them there. Didn't care if they lived or died." Max, as if sensing he was being talked about, moved closer to Statham's leg. The actor absently stroked the dog's head. When they were brought to the shelter, they were skin and bones. Bella had infections in both ears. Max had a broken rib that never healed right. You can still feel the bump if you touch his side. Statham's voice was steady, but Ryan could hear the anger underneath. "That's terrible," Ryan said quietly. It gets worse, Statham said. The shelter workers told me these dogs have been beaten regularly. They flinched at every sudden movement. They cowered when people raised their hands or feet near them. Ryan felt sick. He thought about how he had pretended to kick at these same dogs last night. No wonder Statham had been so angry. It took months of gentle care before they would trust humans again, Statham said. I worked with dog trainers, behavioral specialists. These dogs are smart. They want to love and be loved. But the fear doesn't go away completely. Ryan noticed now how Bella's eyes followed every movement he made. Not aggressive, but watchful, always ready. I'm so sorry, Ryan said again, meaning it more than ever. I had no idea. Most people don't, Statham replied. They see a big, strong dog and think it's just an object for jokes or to show off how tough they are. They don't see the soul inside. Ryan nodded, not knowing what to say. He had always liked dogs in general, but had never really thought about them as individuals with feelings and histories. So why are you telling me all this? Ryan finally asked. You could have just reported me to the police for harassment or something. Statham studied Ryan for a moment. Because you don't strike me as a bad person. Just thoughtless. And I thought maybe hearing their story might make you think next time. Ryan felt a mix of shame and relief. Shame for what he had done. Relief that Statham seemed more interested in teaching him a lesson than punishing him. It does, Ryan said. I promise I'll never do anything like that again. Statham nodded, but his expression showed he wasn't finished. Words are easy. Actions matter more. What do you mean? Ryan asked. I volunteer at an animal rescue center every Sunday, Statham said. You're going to join me tomorrow. It wasn't a request. Ryan blinked in surprise. You want me to volunteer at an animal shelter? Yes, Statham said simply. For the next 4 Sundays at least. See what animals go through because of people's cruelty or carelessness. Ryan thought about arguing. About saying he was busy or had other plans. But looking at Max and Bella, remembering what they had been through, he couldn't bring himself to make excuses. Okay, he said. I'll do it. Good, Statham said, standing up. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't be late, and don't be hungover. As the actor moved toward the door with his dogs following closely, Ryan had one more question. Why are you doing this? Why help me learn instead of just walking away? Statham paused at the door. Because these dogs got a second chance. Maybe you deserve one too. With that, he left, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. Sunday morning came too quickly for Ryan. His alarm went off at 7 a.m., and he groaned as he turned it off. Part of him still couldn't believe that Jason Statham was coming to pick him up to volunteer at an animal shelter. It felt like a strange dream. Ryan showered and dressed in old jeans and a plain t-shirt. He figured working at an animal shelter might be messy. He made a quick breakfast of toast and coffee, too nervous to eat much more. At exactly 8 a.m., there was a knock at his door. Statham was right on time. Morning, the actor said when Ryan opened the door. He was alone this time, no dogs with him. Ready? Ryan nodded and grabbed his jacket. They walked in silence down to the street where a black Range Rover was parked. Ryan was surprised when Statham opened the driver's door himself. No driver? Ryan asked before he could stop himself. Statham gave him a look. I don't need someone to drive me everywhere. They got in the car and drove across London. Ryan wanted to ask questions, maybe get an autograph or a selfie for his friends who still didn't believe this was really happening. But the serious look on Statham's face kept him quiet. After about 30 minutes, they pulled up outside a modest building with a sign that read, Second Chance Animal Rescue. This place saves animals from bad situations, Statham explained as they walked toward the entrance. Some were abandoned, some abused, some just lost. They all need help. A middle-aged woman with gray hair greeted them at the door. Jason, good to see you. She seemed completely comfortable with the famous actor, as if he was just a regular volunteer. Morning, Linda, Statham replied. This is Ryan. He's joining us today. Linda looked at Ryan with bright, kind eyes. Wonderful. We always need more help. Ryan managed a smile, still feeling out of place. Linda gave them both volunteer t-shirts, and they followed her into the main part of the shelter. The noise hit Ryan first. Barking, whining, mewing. Then the smell, a mix of animal and cleaning products. But what really struck him were the faces. Dozens of dogs and cats in cages and pens, all looking out at the humans passing by. "We've got 63 animals right now," Linda explained to Ryan. "That's more than we should have for this space, but we can't turn them away." She showed them to a room full of puppies. These 7 came in on Tuesday. Someone put them in a box by the side of a road. Ryan looked at the small, wiggling bodies. They seemed happy and healthy now, but he couldn't imagine someone just throwing them away like trash. "Who would do that?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. "You'd be surprised," Linda said sadly. "Now here's what we need today. The kennels need cleaning. The dogs need walking. The cats need playtime. The food needs preparing. Think you can handle it?" "I'll try," Ryan said. Linda smiled. "That's all we ask." For the next 4 hours, Ryan worked harder than he had in months. He cleaned cages, filled water bowls, and scooped more poop than he cared to count. His hands got dirty, his new t-shirt got wet, and his back started to ache. But something strange happened as he worked. The animals began to respond to him. A shy cat let him pet it. A nervous dog took a treat from his hand. A rabbit that Linda said never came to the front of its cage hopped right up to Ryan and twitched its nose at him. "You've got away with them," Statham said, appearing beside Ryan as he played with a one-eyed cat named Pirate. Ryan shrugged. "They're just giving me a chance, I guess." Statham nodded. "That's all anyone can ask for, a chance to show who they really are." Ryan thought about that as he continued working. Was that what this was all about? Statham giving him a chance to be better than the drunk fool who had scared his dogs. By the time they finished for the day, Ryan was exhausted but felt oddly satisfied. As they drove back to his flat, Ryan found the courage to ask the question that had been bothering him. "Will you keep bringing me here every Sunday?" he asked. "Or is this a one-time thing?" Statham kept his eyes on the road. "That depends on you." The next Sunday, Ryan was ready and waiting when Statham knocked on his door. This time, there was less awkwardness between them as they drove to the shelter. "How's work?" Statham asked, surprising Ryan with the normal question. "Good," Ryan replied. "I'm assistant manager at a phone shop. Nothing exciting like your job." Statham shrugged. "A job is a job. It's what you do with the rest of your time that matters." This Sunday at the shelter was different. The staff seemed to recognize Ryan now, greeting him with smiles. Linda gave him more responsibility, showing him how to give medicine to the older dogs and check new animals for injuries or illness. "This one came in yesterday," Linda said, pointing to a small brown dog cowering in the corner of a pen. "Found him tied to a lamppost in the rain. No collar, no microchip." Ryan looked at the dog. It was shaking, its eyes wide with fear. It reminded him of how Statham had described Max and Bella when he first found them. "Can I try?" Ryan asked. Linda nodded, watching as Ryan slowly approached the pen. He sat down on the floor outside it, not looking directly at the dog, just waiting quietly. The dog watched him, still trembling. After a few minutes, Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small treat he had saved from lunch. He placed it on the floor of the pen, then moved his hand away. The dog didn't move at first, but then, slowly, it crept forward on its belly. It snatched the treat quickly and retreated to its corner. "Good boy," Ryan said softly. "No one's going to hurt you here." He didn't try to touch the dog or force it to come closer. He just sat there, occasionally placing another small treat a little closer to himself. By the end of the day, the dog was eating treats from Ryan's open palm. It still wouldn't let him touch it, but it was progress. "You're a natural," Linda said, watching them. "Most people want to rush it, But you're letting him set the pace. Ryan felt a strange pride at her words. He had never thought of himself as good with animals before. When it was time to leave, Ryan found himself reluctant to go. He wanted to stay longer, to keep working with the scared little dog. "He'll be here next week," Statham said, seeming to read Ryan's thoughts. "They don't adopt them out until they're ready." "Does that one have a name?" Ryan asked Linda. "Not yet," she replied. "Would you like to name him?" Ryan thought for a moment, looking at the small brown dog. "How about Charlie? He looks like a Charlie." Linda smiled. "Charlie it is." On the drive home, Ryan was quiet, thinking about Charlie and all the other animals at the shelter. "Can I ask you something?" he finally said to Statham. "Sure. How did you start volunteering there? I mean, you're—" Ryan gestured vaguely, not wanting to say famous or rich or anything that might sound rude. Statham's mouth twitched in what might have been a small smile. "It was after I found Max and Bella. I realized how lucky they were to be found and rescued. So many others aren't so lucky." He paused, waiting for a red light. "I've always had a thing for the underdogs, the ones everyone else gives up on." Ryan nodded, understanding more now. "Like Charlie." "Like Charlie," Statham agreed. "And maybe like you too." The comment caught Ryan by surprise. "Me?" Most people would have made excuses, not shown up, or complained about the work, Statham said. "You didn't." Ryan hadn't thought about it that way. He had just been trying to make up for his mistake. "I still feel bad about what I did," Ryan admitted. "To your dogs." "Good," Statham said simply. "That means you're learning." As they pulled up outside Ryan's flat, Statham added, "See you next Sunday." It wasn't really a question, but Ryan answered anyway. "Definitely." For the first time since their strange relationship began, Ryan felt like maybe, just maybe, he was earning a little of Statham's respect. The weeks turned into months. What had started as a punishment, 4 Sundays of volunteer work, had somehow become a regular part of Ryan's life. Every Sunday morning, he would meet Statham at the shelter. Sometimes the actor would drive him. Sometimes Ryan would take the bus and meet him there. Ryan's friends were confused by the change in him. He stopped going out drinking every Friday night. He started saving money. He even put a donation jar for the animal shelter on the counter at the phone shop where he worked. "What's with you lately?" Mark asked him one day after Ryan turned down yet another invitation to the pub. "Ever since that thing with Statham, you've been different." Ryan shrugged. "I guess I found something that matters more than getting drunk." At the shelter, Charlie was making progress. The small brown dog now wagged his tail when Ryan approached. He would let Ryan pet him and even play with him. Linda said Charlie was like a different dog. "You've got the touch," she told Ryan. "Some people just do." One Sunday in May, about 4 months after the night Ryan had pretended to kick Statham's dogs, something unexpected happened. Ryan arrived at the shelter to find Statham waiting with a serious look on his face. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked. "The shelter's in trouble," Statham said. "The building owner wants to sell. Linda has 2 months to find a new place or enough money to buy this one." Ryan felt a cold weight in his stomach. What happens to the animals if she can't? "Some would go to other shelters, if there's room," Statham said grimly. "The rest." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "How much does she need?" Ryan asked. "About £50,000, Statham replied. "I'm putting in some, but I can't cover it all without raising questions." Ryan understood. If word got out that Jason Statham was paying for the whole shelter, every reporter in London would be there, disturbing the animals and staff. "There must be something we can do," Ryan said, trying to think. "That's why I'm telling you." Statham said, "You know people. You work with the public every day. Maybe you have ideas." Ryan felt honored that Statham was asking for his help. It showed how far they had come from that first night. "I'll think of something," Ryan promised. That week, Ryan couldn't get the shelter out of his mind. He thought about all the animals there, especially Charlie. What would happen to them if the shelter closed? Then, on Thursday, a customer came into the phone shop carrying a flyer for a local community fair happening that weekend. There would be food stalls, games, and music. Lots of people would be there. An idea began to form in Ryan's mind. He called Linda at the shelter. Would it be okay if I set up a booth at the community fair to raise money and awareness for the shelter? That would be wonderful, Linda said, but it's this Saturday. Can you put something together that quickly? I think so, Ryan said, already making plans. I'll need some help though. He called his friends next. To his surprise, they were all willing to help. Even Mark, who had been the most confused by Ryan's new interest in animal welfare. So we finally get to meet Jason Statham? Mark asked. I don't know if he'll be there, Ryan said honestly. But this isn't about him anymore. It's about the animals. On Saturday morning, Ryan and his friends set up their booth at the fair. They had made posters with pictures of the shelter animals. They had donation jars and information sheets about adoption. Ryan had even convinced his boss at the phone shop to donate a new smartphone for a raffle prize. At first, people just walked by the booth. But then Ryan started telling stories about the animals at the shelter. He told them about the puppies abandoned in a box. He told them about the one-eyed cat named Pirate. And he told them about Charlie, the scared dog who was learning to trust again. People began to stop and listen. They put money in the donation jars. They signed up to volunteer or adopt. Some even shared their own rescue pet stories. By mid-afternoon, their booth was one of the busiest at the fair. And then, to Ryan's surprise, he saw a familiar figure approaching through the crowd. Jason Statham was coming toward the booth. And he wasn't alone. Walking perfectly at his side were Max and Bella. A hush fell over the crowd around the booth as people recognized Jason Statham. Phones came out, and people started taking pictures and whispering to each other. Is that who I think it is? Mark whispered to Ryan, eyes wide. Ryan nodded, equally surprised. He hadn't told Statham about the fair. He had wanted to show that he could do something on his own, without the actor's fame to help. Ryan, Statham said when he reached the booth. He looked around at the posters, the donation jars, and Ryan's friends. Linda told me what you were doing. Thought we should come support you. Ryan couldn't help but smile. Thanks. I didn't think you'd bring Max and Bella, though. They're the best examples of what rescue can do, Statham said, patting each dog's head. And they wanted to see you. As if on cue, Bella moved forward and nudged Ryan's hand with her nose. Ryan carefully petted her head, still amazed at how far they had all come from that night outside the pub. Word spread quickly through the fair that Jason Statham was at the animal rescue booth. Soon, there was a line of people waiting to meet him and his dogs, all willing to make a donation for the chance. Statham was surprisingly patient, talking to each person, letting children pet Max and Bella under his watchful eye. All the while, he kept directing attention back to the shelter and its needs. These dogs were rescued, he explained to a group of teenagers who were taking selfies with him. There are dozens more at the shelter who need homes or just some care while they wait. Ryan watched in amazement as the donation jars filled up, as people signed up to volunteer, as families took information about adoption. What had started as his small idea was turning into something much bigger. You planned this, didn't you? Ryan asked Statham during a quiet moment. Coming here with the dogs, drawing all this attention. Statham shook his head. No, this was all you. I just added a little star power to what you already started. By the end of the day, they had raised over £5,000, far more than Ryan had hoped for, though still not enough to save the shelter. As they were packing up, Statham pulled Ryan aside. There's something I want to show you tomorrow. Be ready at 7 in the morning. Earlier than usual, Ryan commented. What is it? You'll see, Statham said, that ghost of a smile on his face again. The next morning, Statham picked Ryan up in his Range Rover, but instead of heading to the shelter, they drove in a different direction, out of the city. "Where are we going?" Ryan asked. "You'll see," Statham repeated. After about an hour's drive, they turned down a country lane. Ahead was an old farmhouse with several outbuildings. The land around it was green and peaceful. "What is this place?" Ryan asked as they got out of the car. "It's for sale," Statham said, leading the way to the main house. "The owner is an old friend. He's moving to Spain and needs to sell quickly." A real estate agent was waiting for them. She showed them around the property. The solid old house, the large barn, the fenced fields. "It would need some work," the agent explained, "but the structures are all sound." Ryan was confused. Why was Statham showing him a farm for sale? It wasn't until they were back outside, looking at the barn, that he understood. "This could be the new shelter," Statham said, gesturing around. "More space than the current place. Room for the animals to run. Fresh air." Ryan looked around with new eyes. He could see it now. Dogs playing in the fields, cats sunning themselves on the porch, volunteers working in the barn turned kennel. "It's perfect," Ryan said, "but it must cost a fortune." "Less than you'd think," Statham replied. "And with what we raised yesterday, plus what I can put in without raising eyebrows, plus some corporate sponsors I have in mind. You think we could really do it?" Ryan asked, hope building in his chest. "I think we already started," Statham said. "Yesterday at the fair, that was just the beginning." As they walked back to the car, Ryan had a sudden thought. "Charlie would love it here," he said, thinking of the small brown dog who had become so special to him. "He would," Statham agreed. Or what?" Statham looked at Ryan directly. "Or he might love your flat, if you were thinking about adoption." Ryan stopped walking. The idea had been in the back of his mind for weeks, but he hadn't dared say it out loud. "You think I'm ready for that?" "I think you've been ready for a while," Statham said. "Just needed to realize it yourself." 1 year later, Ryan stood in the main barn of what was now called Second Chance Farm. The old farm buildings had been transformed into a modern animal shelter with room for twice as many animals as the old place in the city. The grand opening was today. Colorful banners hung from the buildings, and volunteers in bright blue t-shirts moved around, making sure everything was perfect. Ryan, now the assistant manager of the shelter, checked his clipboard one more time. "The mayor will be here at noon," he told Linda, who was still the head of the shelter. "The newspaper and local TV station are coming too." Linda smiled at him. "I still can't believe we did it. 1 year ago, I thought we were going to close for good." Ryan nodded, remembering how it had all started. After seeing the farm, he and Statham had launched a full fundraising campaign. The fair booth had been just the beginning. They had organized charity auctions, benefit concerts, and corporate sponsorships. Statham had been careful to stay somewhat in the background, not wanting his fame to overshadow the cause. But his support had been crucial, opening doors that would have remained closed to Ryan alone. And now, almost exactly 1 year after that fateful night outside the pub, they were opening the new shelter. "Is Jason coming today?" Linda asked. "He said he would try," Ryan replied. "He's filming in the States right now, but he promised to at least call in." As Linda went to oversee the food table setup, Ryan felt something bump against his leg. He looked down to see Charlie, his brown fur now glossy and healthy, looking up at him with bright eyes. "Hey, buddy," Ryan said, bending down to pet his dog. "Big day, huh?" Charlie had come home with Ryan 6 months ago. The scared, trembling dog from the shelter was now confident and happy. He followed Ryan everywhere, including to work at the shelter every day. As noon approached, more and more people arrived for the opening. Local families, reporters, government officials, even Ryan's old friends came to show their support. "Who would have thought?" Mark said, looking around at the farm. "All this because you were a drunk idiot one night." Ryan laughed. It was true in a way. If he hadn't made that stupid mistake, none of this would have happened. His life had changed completely. New job, new purpose, even a new home near the shelter. The phone shop was a distant memory now. At 5 minutes to 12, Ryan's phone rang. It was Statham. "How's it going?" the actor asked. "Great," Ryan replied. "Just waiting for the mayor to arrive for the ribbon cutting." "Good," Statham said. "Sorry I couldn't be there in person." "It's okay," Ryan said. "We couldn't have done any of this without you." There was a pause on the line. "That's not true. I just gave you a push in the right direction. You did the work." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. Coming from Statham, that was high praise indeed. "Anyway," Statham continued, "go to the main gate. There's a delivery coming for you." "A delivery? Now?" Ryan asked, confused. "We're about to start the ceremony." "Trust me," Statham said, and hung up. Curious, Ryan walked to the main entrance of the farm, Charlie trotting at his heels. As he approached the gate, a van was pulling up. The driver got out and opened the back doors. To Ryan's surprise, out jumped Max and Bella, Statham's German shepherds. They were wearing bright blue bandanas that matched the shelter volunteers' t-shirts. With them was a young woman Ryan had never seen before. "Hi," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Emma, Jason's assistant." He sent Max and Bella to represent him at the opening. He thought it would be fitting, since they're the reason all this started. Ryan knelt down as the dogs approached him. They remembered him, coming forward to sniff his hands and receive pets. Charlie was cautious at first, but soon the three dogs were sniffing each other in greeting. "This is perfect," Ryan said, standing up. "The mayor is about to arrive for the ribbon cutting. Would you mind if Max and Bella were part of the ceremony?" "That's why they're here," Emma smiled. As they walked back to the main barn where the ceremony would take place, Ryan thought about how much had changed in 1 year. From a thoughtless drunk who scared dogs for a laugh, to the assistant manager of an animal shelter with his own rescue dog at his side. His phone buzzed with a text from Statham. Second chances all around. Ryan smiled. That was what it was all about. Second chances for the animals, for the shelter, and for him. When the mayor arrived, the ceremony began. Speeches were made, thanks were given, and finally, it was time to cut the ribbon and officially open Second Chance Farm. Linda handed the scissors to Ryan. "You should do it," she said. "None of this would be here without you." With Charlie on one side of him and Statham's dogs on the other, Ryan cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered, cameras flashed, and the new chapter began. Later, as the guests toured the facility, Ryan found a quiet moment with Max and Bella. He knelt down between them, giving each a gentle scratch behind the ears. "Thank you," he said softly, "for forgiving me, for giving me a second chance." The dogs leaned into his touch, all fear of him long gone, and Ryan knew that sometimes the worst mistakes could lead to the best changes. If you were lucky enough to get that second chance,